Hey guys, welcome back to Throwing Wrenches. I'm Tom.
And I'm Declan.
We're back here at the 350, so we've got it sitting here on its engine stand in the garage, in between the two cars. It's still pretty dang cold in the garage, even with the heaters on.
Yeah.
It's only like 55 in here, so we got to keep moving because it's a little chilly. But the big first test that we're doing today on this motor is we are going to run a leak down test. And full admission here, although I understand what a leak down test is for, and I can comprehend it, and I understand what we're supposed to do, I haven't done one before. So this is going to be a first for me and for you.
That always goes well.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. There's going to be all sorts of opportunities for you, the internet viewer and YouTuber, to ridicule me relentlessly for me doing this wrong, but that's okay. We're going to take a crack at it and see what we can do. The goal of this leak down test is to check and see if our cylinders are holding compression. So we did the compression test when this was still in the car, when you recall. Mm-hmm. And that was to find out how many PSI each cylinder was building for compression. What that didn't tell us is whether it's holding that compression.
Or that didn't tell us.
Words are hard.
Especially on camera.
It did not tell us what the engine is holding for compression. So, real basic understanding as I have it, inside each one of these cylinders, you've got a piston with rings around it, right? You've seen that from what we pulled out of your old motor. And you've also got valves, and you've seen what those look like. You know, look at the bottom of wine glasses almost, right? Those valves are letting out exhaust or letting in an air-fuel mixture. So those two valves and the piston rings are really the 3 out of 4 possible things that are sealing off that chamber for compression. The other one is the head gasket. We think our head gasket is fine, because if our head gasket wasn't okay, we would probably be seeing water in the motor oil. We'd be seeing coolant in the motor oil, or we'd be seeing the coolant would be filthy and blacked up. We're not seeing either one of those, so we think that the engine is more or less okay with the head gasket. It's just a question of whether those valves are leaking and whether the piston rings are leaking. So what this test is going to do is we're going to fill up each chamber one by one with air, with compressed air. And that's going to build up to a certain pressure that this gauge is going to monitor for us. And then we're going to stop and let it hold. And then we're going to see on this other gauge how much of that air is leaking. We will be able to hear whether that air is leaking out. So if the air comes out of the manifold here, if it comes out of the intake, and we hear it hissing through here, then we'll know we have an intake valve that's leaking. If it hisses out of the side, out of the exhaust ports, then we'll know we have an exhaust valve that's leaking. And if we can hear it coming out of here, then we know we have a piston ring that's leaking. Because if it comes out of here, that's coming through the crankcase, so in through the engine, and then you'll hear it through here.
Are you going to be able to hear it, or is it going to be up to me?
I should be able to hear it. If it's going to be strong enough to show up a big leak, we're going to hear it. I don't think we're going to have a problem there. All right, let's get to work instead of yapping. We'll read some instructions, because allegedly that never hurt anybody. This tells you have to keep it warm. We don't. We can do this cold. So position the cylinder that you'll test at top dead center. So what that means, and that's why I got this breaker bar out with the socket for the crank. Can you see in here? All right, do you see this tab in here? Mm-hmm. Okay. There's also a little mark. Let's move this motor over a little bit. You see that line that comes across there? That's your top dead center indicator on the harmonic balancer. And then there should be a little, on that tab, a 0.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And what we want to do is line that 0 up with that stripe, that line.
Okay, keep on. Like a centimeter. There you go.
Okay. So now that's showing at top dead center, technically. But top dead center really only refers to where that piston is inside the cylinder. What top dead center doesn't tell you is whether it's there on the compression stroke or whether it's on the exhaust stroke.
But when do we want it to be on?
We want it to be on the compression stroke.
Then it's probably on the other one.
So the compression stroke, because technically it'll be a top dead center twice within a normal cycle, right? So we want to make sure it's at TDC on the compression stroke. So one of the ways that we can do that to prove it out, we're going to take this spark plug out. We're only going to take the one out for this one cylinder that we'll do first.
Yours look nasty.
Put your thumb against that hole. Don't worry, nothing's going to happen.
I know, I'm not gonna.
You
wouldn't make me do that.
So you're either going to feel it puff, you're going to feel pressure, or you're not.
No bit. I guess.
Oh.
Oh yeah.
You feel it?
Yeah. Can hear it.
Okay. So now let's put your finger there again. You feeling the pressure or no?
Oh yeah. Oh well, now it's shooting out air.
It was shooting out air?
Now it is.
Okay. So we're like, if you felt the pressure there, then that means we're probably at top of the center. You want a rag?
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to connect these two. We got pressure in here. You can take a look at these gauges. And you can see this is the leak gauge. So this is going to tell us where it's leaking. What I did in the instructions to set this thing up is we hooked it up to the air and set the regulator so that this needle was reading 0. So 0 leakage with the right amount of pressure here. So now we're going to hook this up.
Well. Almost.
Hear it?
Yeah.
Yeah. See if you can make.
Is it anywhere else though?
Okay, that's where I'm hearing it. All of you, can you hear it here? That's the dipstick tube. I was going a little bit nuts because I could hear it out of two places here, but they're both.
It's here and there.
It's both. Well, yeah, it's the crankcase is still where it's leaking out. So we know we're going to hear leaking, but it's literally that's 10%.
Is that good or bad? Oh, it's high.
No, that was good. High is like 80%. Everything's gonna.
This was pointing towards
Yeah.
that, so I was like,
Okay, we're back to 0 again, so we'll try it again. Same thing. I'm getting about a 10. Still hearing the same place, right? I'm not hearing it.
yeah.
Okay.
So it's gonna come out of some place. It's just
Yeah, it's always gonna. It's not completely airtight. Yep, still. So I'm going ahead and resetting this every time, which is like not required, I don't think, but in better safe than sorry. I just want to make sure that we're getting accurate readings every time. So go ahead and hook that up. Same thing.
on.
Yep. Okay. Disconnect.
And there.
Then out of the exhaust a little. Yeah. All right, you can plug that in.
So.
Yeah, it's under 15. Okay, you can disconnect. So that's 3 shots on that one. Every one of them was under 15. So far so good, but this is the bank that treated us well in the compression test. If you remember.
Sides, yeah.
Yeah. So you can take the other one out. I'll put this plug in.
But
All right. Got your finger there?
immediately.
Immediately feeling?
Yeah.
Okay. Put the scope in. That's the dipstick tube. You were feeling for this hole for pressure, right?
You're right. You're right.
Yes. You guys can. I'm still recording. Yeah. So you can see that. And then I'll tell you whether or not I can see it. Yeah, I think I kind of can. Good. All right.
This one's speed run.
It's 15 now. Same thing?
I can feel it if I go all the way in.
Yeah, yeah.
Nothing there.
You're just hearing it come out of the dipstick tube now? Okay. All right.
Cheat. I think you messed me up. I forgot there were two sides.
Okay. All right, so this one's at like 13.
There.
Now, which exhaust port would it come out of?
That. Oh.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yep.
There, yeah.
You can hear it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can feel a little bit coming out. Okay. Just get down to a well-oiled machine here as we get to the last cylinder.
Only took us a few. Yeah.
This one's at like 12. It's even lower. Okay.
As lower, the better?
Yes, yeah. It's because you're talking about percentage of pressure lost. So when I say 12, it's 12% of the pressure being lost.
Was this the last try?
No, we want to do one more. It's the last one. $15.
There.
Yeah, still same thing. It's like the faintest breeze coming out of the exhaust on just about every one of them, right? All right, one more time. Actually, two more times. This time it's like 18. Okay. Okay. Last one. 17.
So it's the same.
Yep. All right. There we go. You guys wouldn't know this, but this is the second time we're doing this little sum up because the first time some idiot didn't press record properly on the camera. I don't know what you're talking about. That sums up what we're doing for our leak down test. So that's what we really wanted to get accomplished tonight, was just to do leak down and make sure we don't have any major problems. And it looks like we don't. So under 20% on each cylinder leaking down. Some of these were only 10 or 12. So that's pretty darn good. And I feel decent about what we're getting for readings on the gauge because once I started zeroing it out in between each check, we started getting very, very consistent results. So I'm pretty happy with this. I don't think we're getting any big leakage. And although I'll check the numbers, I'm pretty sure that under 20%, it just doesn't make sense to start tearing anything apart because under 20% is working. So I think we're going to run with that. Did want to let you guys know what this tool was, but they don't sponsor us or anything. Nobody does.
Orion Motor Tech.
It's just a cheapie that we got from Amazon. You can see it here. OMT, Orion Motor Tech.
Cheap.
So,
Has case. Easy to store.
yeah. Little instruction sheet came with it. All the parts you need, including a little spark plug.
Now it kind of
tester.
sounds like we are sponsored.
Sounds like we're shilling for it, yeah. We're not really. This is like less than $100. I really bring this up just to make sure that we're covering the fact that you can get a lot of these tools that used to be the kind of tools you really had to go to a professional mechanic for. You can get most of this stuff cheap now. So there's nothing to stop you from doing this test. And I think we could have done this test with the engine in the car as well. It was just way easier to do it here in terms of getting the top dead center on every one of the cylinders. That made a cake. That little camera too, that scope, that was like $75 or something like that. It was worth every penny because the jobs that I've used that for, there is no substitute for it at all. So being able to throw that inside the cylinder and see the piston coming all the way up and know that I had it dead on and to check the valve placement, huge. Made this go a lot faster and it was a lot easier. So the next step in this for us will be tomorrow night. We're going to come down here again after work/school. Now that we know that we don't have to tear out the piston rings and put in new rings in this motor, we'll go ahead and start tearing the top end down. All we're really going to do is take the valve covers off and take the intake off. The intake needs to have everything cleaned up in here and stripped down. We'll paint it. The valve covers need to come off so we can take a peek at the valve seals, because the valve guide seals, valve stem seals. That is where I think we're getting most of our oil leak coming through. So we're going to visually check those and then just make sure that we are confirming what we have. But then we'll get some of those ordered up. They are really, really cheap. So that'll be another fun first-time job for me to get done here. And then hopefully while we're at it, we're going to check into the camshaft while we're here and at least give a visual inspection to make sure that it's not all gross or worn out. I don't think it is. So that'll be coming tomorrow night, and you'll see us in a flash, but it'll take us 24 hours. So here you go. All right, I guess he's not coming back. I'm just kidding. I gave Declan the night off. We're back here the second night. It's freezing down here in the basement or in the garage, and he's had a pretty busy day and a lot of stuff after school, so I gave him the out because it's about 19 degrees outside. It's warmer in the garage, but not by a lot. It hasn't cracked 50 degrees, and I actually have my heated Milwaukee jacket on to try to take some of the sting off. So let's get into this right away. We're going to start taking this intake and valve covers off this car. So we're going to go with the valve covers first. And these don't have the right bolts on them, which is entirely my bad. Just grab bolts that would work. And the problem is there's not enough room inside these valve covers to let this socket work. So I know I'm going to have a trick with some of these. But such is life, we deal with it. So these valve covers I did a spray job on over the summer to try to clean them up a little bit and make them look good. These are just cast aluminum Holley valve covers. And the cast aluminum gets kind of oxidized and looks kind of grubby after a while, so I wanted to paint them up. And they looked good, but man, they took a beating. The paint just didn't last on them. They're all kinds of scraped up. Now, I didn't primer them or anything like that, which is not helping. I probably should have done like a self-etching primer and maybe it would have bonded together better. But live and learn. It was really a quick fix because I knew we were planning on changing this motor out, so it wasn't like I thought this was going to last forever. So after the good news that we found out yesterday about the fact that the piston rings are really fine because our leak down sort of passed, it changes my thinking on what we want to look for in this motor, and I think we're really just looking to do a simple cleanup on it. So we'll still take it out and we'll clean it and degrease it as soon as the weather gets warm enough for that. And Declan does want to repaint it. He wants to go with black. So we'll repaint it black. Before we do that, we'll check on seals and gaskets basically across the whole engine and sort of give it just a refresh. It's not really a rebuild, just a regasketing and sealing. just so that we can make sure that we're putting back something in that's not going to leak and cause us all kinds of problems. But it doesn't seem like it's hurt. And part of that resealing is going to be valve seals, or valve stem seals. Now, there's a couple of different kinds. What I'm unclear on is how easy it would be to change from one style to another. And I don't know how much we're going to be able to see in here with the springs in place, but I'm kind of hoping we might be able to get a little peekaboo at something here. All right. These Allen heads are really annoying. When they were covered up when I got the car with those goofy little anodized aluminum caps. And I took them off, but unfortunately, because they were all anodized aluminum and they had been on here for too long and kind of neglected, they were not easy to get off. Some of them I had to cut off. And they had all oxidized. So this Allen head bolt that's at the front of the engine here, the front of the intake, is completely caked up with oxidized aluminum. I don't even know how to get that out. We'll be putting new bolts in this thing anyway, but this is going to necessitate new bolts. Here. Take a look at how munged up that is. Pretty gross. Fortunately, it didn't get stuck on me. I don't want to mangle this thing, but we do have to get it off. So we'll just be gentle.
What is that?
There we go. Break the seal.
Okay. Then try.
All right, let's see what we can see. All right, so let's take a look at what's going on in here. You guys are sort of seeing this at the same time I am. I just grabbed my camera. But let's look in the lifter valley, and that looks pretty clean. So normally what I'd be looking for here is gunk, dried up oil, particulates, metal shavings, anything like that that could tell me that this thing's tired or beaten on. And I'm not seeing any of that. We got a little bit of debris that fell in here. It's gasket material, so that's not been in here. But otherwise, this looks pretty clean. I mean, there's a little bit of residual in here, a little bit of deposit, but I mean, I would say nothing to speak of. This looks pretty darn good. And reasonably happy with that. No complaints. I'm having a full-on debate with myself right now about whether or not now is the right time to take things apart. So I do not have a spring kit, spring compressor kit for this, which I'll order tonight. Forgot to get one of those. I need one of those to be able to take the valve springs off, and that's really the only way I'm going to be able to see the valve seals at all. So I won't be able to do that, but what I do want to be able to do is take a peekaboo at these lifters. So here's the trick for that, from what I understand. Haven't done it before. Again, just a pre-warning or a disclosure. I have not taken the lifters out of a motor before. I do know how to do it. And I think these are going to be reasonably okay, I hope, though, just by glancing at what the inside of this valley looks like. Hoping it's not going to give me too much trouble. But the plan would be to reuse these. And so if you're going to reuse them, you really need to make sure that everything goes back in the proper order and you don't mix them up. So I got to take a minute to figure out how I'm going to do that to make sure that I got them in the right order, in the right place, and that I don't screw them up. So give me a second on that one. It looks pretty good. Show you guys. It's looking pretty decent. I don't see a real problem with wear there. Looks like it's pretty clean, and it's not uneven. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to poke this right and back in place. And I think that we'll just continue to do that until we find one, or unless we find one that's egregious. If we find one that's really bad, then we'll do something about it. But so far, that's hopeful. I'm trying to be careful here with where I'm placing things because the valley does have open holes to the engine. So I'm trying real hard not to drop anything down there. Lifter number 2, this is the intake lifter on the number 2 cylinder. It pretty much looks the same as the last one. So no harm, no foul there. It's looking pretty good. There's no pronounced cupping. So I don't know how many miles this engine has on it. I know that I've only put probably a few thousand miles on this since I've owned it, because I don't take it great distances really. I drive it a lot, but I drive it a lot locally. So I don't really know how many miles it actually has on it. I know it's a rebuilt motor, so there's a plate on here. I'll have to show you later, or maybe I'll take a picture and I'll put it there. There's a little plate on here, a little placard that talks about the company that made this engine. You can see when you look at the head where there's usually a marking that's stamped by the manufacturer, like GM. That little pad has no numbers on it. It's been ground off, which is typically what would happen once a motor gets rebuilt. So I suspect that this tag is from the company that rebuilt this thing, and they're probably one of those companies that they were a dime a dozen for a long time there, but they would basically rebuild engines pretty close to standard factory specs just for normal passenger cars. So they were nothing special. They weren't built motors. They weren't anything fancy. But, you know, if you had a family car and you had over 100,000 miles on it and it was giving up the ghost, you could call these guys and get a cheap rebuilt motor and drop it into the car and get some more years out of it. So I think that's what this motor was. Whether it was remanned again after it came back from that place, or whether it was, whether it's sitting now as it was when they did it, I don't know. More of the same, kiddos.
Yeah.
Check that out. Pretty much the same thing again, which I will take happily. There she is. All right, this is the first one that I'm seeing here. That I'm seeing like the mildest of cupping. I don't even know if you guys can see that there, if I get the right light on it. But right in the center there, there's just the teeniest dimple. I mean, even here sitting in good light staring at it, I really got to look at it to see it. But it is there. Now it's worth noting that I've definitely changed the oil on this myself many, many times. I'm pretty good about oil changes on this. I run good oil on it with zinc, and yes, I run Wix filters on it, despite what you saw on the other one. Yeah, again, super slight dimpling on this one. Not even going to show it. It's the same as the other ones. It's so mild. I think this one's got some cupping on it too. It's a little bit worse than the other one. Than its sister, sitting right next to it, but it's really still not at all bad. This is not, I mean, again, like I said, I'm no expert. And despite what oftentimes comes off as a know-it-all attitude, I really don't intend to portray myself as an expert here. It doesn't look bad. So here I am minding my own business, taking these nuts off these rocker arms, do, and suddenly, wah, wah. One of these things is not like the other. That is the wrong size nut. Right there. He's not like the rest of the guys. Don't know why. Now look at the exhaust lifter. Huh. Probably the biggest wear pattern that I've seen yet. It's got the broadest circle, the biggest circle of wear, but it still doesn't look cupped. Not very. Five. And this is another one to show you guys. Again, not worried about it, but that's what we're seeing for cupping there. That is not severe, not in my mind. I mean, it's there. It's definitely mated to it. It's definitely been moving on that lifter, or on that cam, but it does not look bad to me. I'm going to give you guys this. This, I would say, is sort of reference standard on this engine so far. Most of the lifters look like that. Which is not bad at all to me. You can see there's a little bit of wear. You can see that, let's see if I get an angle right on the light. There's a little bit of wear going on there in the center. You can tell where it's been really riding that cam lobe. And you can see when you move in the light, it's just got like the very, very slightest depression or dimple in that surface as it's wearing. But I believe that's just these things mated in and not actually a sign of replacement worthy wear. So I decided while I was here to take the oil pan off. Realized I can't do a whole lot more at the top end without starting to take springs off, which I can't do at the moment. But this seems like a good use of my time. We're really just taking this thing off to inspect. I don't really have any intentions of pulling apart the bearings unless I see something fishy in here, like a bunch of metal sitting in the bottom of the oil pan. But given those lifters and the condition that those were in, the fact that I'm seeing a clean motor and no trouble anywhere else, I'm just going to go ahead and assume that the bearings are also probably pretty good on this thing, like I said, unless I see a bunch of metal in here. And I'm sort of the mind that the less we disturb, the better. Sort of that leave well enough alone principle. It came off pretty easy. Good. This looks pretty good. Even inside the oil pan, where I would expect to see a bunch of like heavy sludge, it's really not bad. I'm not saying I want my dinner served on it, but it's reasonable. This interests me. Yeah. So, I had troubles with this motor with oil pressure from time to time, not when it was just running normal, but when I would come to stops. And not consistently, not all the time, depending on how hard I stopped. This oil pickup is like barely in here. And it was rattling around as soon as I took the pan off. So I'm going to go ahead and guess that this thing was either completely disconnected or partially disconnected, which can be, from what I read, one of the things that can give you that symptom, because if you stop quick, this thing changes position, comes out of the oil, and fails to pick up as efficiently. Now, I never lost oil pressure. It's important to point that out. It never went dead on me, but I would get oil pressure that dropped down pretty low. It just at idle, never when I was running. So I was curious about what it is, and I think that's what it was. So you can see we still got some oil that's sitting in some of those pistons. It's just kind of hanging around on us, to be expected. But man, what a difference between the inside of this motor and the inside of Declan's. This looks very clean. You can see how shiny those pistons are. They look like they're brand new. Certainly no evidence of destruction or twisting. I don't see any heavy issues. Overall, that looks good. Let's get a better angle on this side of these cylinders. You can still see cross-hatching on the cylinder walls, which is a good sign. And then our cam, you can kind of peek in and see that from in here. Can't see every lobe of the cam. We can see some, and I don't see anything that looks terribly alarming there. I mean, we didn't see it in the lifters either, so I wasn't expecting terribly alarming, but overall, I think it's looking pretty good. With the exception of that oil pickup. That's poo-poo. Well, so that does it. This is actually the second wrap-up that I made of this thing, because I wrapped up and did my little sign-off before I decided, you know what, while I'm here, I might as well flip this thing over and take the oil pan off. Well, now I've done that and I've satisfied my curiosity. and it looks pretty good to me. I'm not seeing anything in here that makes me alarmed. The cam looks like it's in decent shape. The lifters verify that. They look like they're in decent shape. Everything inside the motor here looks like it's clean and straightened away. It does not look like an engine that's experiencing any real wear. All the gaskets are dried out to hell. That's sort of a normal thing. We can replace all of those. That's no big deal. So I'm really pretty pleasantly surprised and pleased with how clean this is looking. So we're going to do something about the oil pump pickup. More than likely, I'm just going to throw a little tack weld on there to make sure that that thing stays in place and doesn't walk around on us again. And I think that'll be a big help for our troubles. We will probably also put a different oil pump on while we're in here. Just make sure that we put in a good known oil pump, maybe with a higher flow rate. Otherwise, it's like gaskets and seals, I think. So we'll see how the next couple of weeks here weigh out, but I don't really want to bother going ahead and taking off the caps to inspect bearings. Oh, and the other pleasant surprise, this is a 4-bolt main motor. You guys saw that when I was scanning around with the camera, I think, but I was not expecting that. I was expecting this to be just a 2-bolt main motor, but it's a 4-bolt main, which means long-term, we can build the sucker up and make it a little bit beefier, which is pretty cool. So this is a motor worth hanging on to in my mind. So we'll take care of it, but this is not going to be the one where we do anything crazy. We will change the timing chain on it. I got a great deal on one at Advanced Auto Parts. They're closing a bunch of stores, and apparently they were having a big closeout online. So I managed to get a timing chain set, a double roller timing chain set for like 25 bucks for this thing. So that seems like a good investment while this thing is out. So we'll pop the timing cover off, the water pump timing cover off, and we'll change the timing chain. And we'll take a peek, hopefully, at the cam to try to understand what the numbers are on that cam. If for no other reason, just to sort of have that in our back pocket to know what's here. But other than that, I think we're probably going to let sleeping dogs lie for the most part and not go crazy on this thing. Because we want to get it back into Declan's car and we want to get it running. That's the big key, is getting this thing running so that he can drive it. It's not about getting it perfect. So if he runs this thing for a year and it does fine and it gets him around, and we decide we want to throw a rebuilt 305 in here, or if we decide we want to yank this and do a top end kit on it, we can do all of those things. All of that stuff could come in the future, but the money's not there right now. The time's not there right now. So we're going to focus on getting this thing in and running and slapped into his car, and we'll see what the future brings after that. So thanks, guys, for watching. Please like and subscribe if you're into the channel. We really, really appreciate it. And if you're so inclined, take a look at our merchandise. You can look at it on the YouTube store, or you can go to our website at throwingwrenchesgarage.com. Either way, if you buy merch from us, all that money goes into Declan's car. The money comes into the account, and we just basically spend it straight on this thing. So we actually just bought new carpet for the interior of his car. I just placed that order today, so hopefully within the next couple of weeks we'll be throwing some carpet into his car, and then we can start working on the interior while we're doing this too. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week. Keep throwing wrenches.